where I try to get into a taller chair in front of an audience. Here we go. All right. I almost flipped in one of these one time, so there we go. Okay, we're all settled. So let's start because you guys are here for a very important reason. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you to this special event celebrating the multi-talented Julianne Hough. Yeah, you guys ever get to know it, she'll hear you, okay? Now, in addition to her remarkable career as an actress, singer, and dancer, she is now stepping into the literary world with her debut novel, Everything We Never Knew. And it's co-authored with the incredible Ellen Goodlett. This captivating story follows a successful young realtor whose life takes a dramatic turn when she discovers she can feel others' emotions and see into their personal memories. Now, join us as Julianne and Ellen share their journey into writing and delve into the heart of a story that promises to touch our souls and ignite our imaginations. Please give a warm welcome to Julianne Hough and Ellen Goodlett.
Is the reflection in the mirror, or just a product of the people I know? All my questions keep burning, just like the earth keeps on turning. No end to lessons I'm learning all at once. Pieces that I thought were missing slip right into place and become a picture of where I belong. Hey, don't have to say so.
Do you guys recognize this voice on the song by chance? Julianne Hough, everybody. Let's give some noise. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hear you've already had some Mall of America experiences.
Oh yeah, we went and did the main ride that like basically takes you around and sees the whole area. Gave me a little like windswept blow of my hair. I loved it. It was so
I
good.
was gonna say, does it look like you've ridden a roller coaster? Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, by the way, I woke up at like 3:30 this morning in LA, landed, and the first thing we did was ride a roller coaster. I'm like, that's kind of rad. I love it. But yeah, so happy to be here. Hi everybody, and I'm Julianne, and this is Ellen, and we are so excited to share our new book with you all. And I'm like, this is one of the biggest labors of love I think that we've been working on for 4.5 years. We'll get to the reason why later. But we're just so happy to be here and sharing this with all of you.
Obviously, I was talking to Julianne backstage a little bit, and I've had the just pleasure of meeting her in the past when you were here promoting. Anyone see the movie, the Nicholas Sparks movie with Josh Duhamel, right? Now,
Safe haven, baby.
loved it so much, and you were so lovely, and still are, of course. But we've seen you act, of course. We've heard you sing. We've watched you dance for many years. So, what made you decide to dive into the world of writing, and especially a fiction novel?
Well, I'm a storyteller by nature. I mean, whether I'm telling stories through my body and dancing or writing music, and I had a country career at one point, or, you know, I have been acting in my life. And so even my company that I started called Kinergy, which we can get into as well, like that is storytelling. And I love connecting with people. I think that as humans, we all share a lot of the same emotions. And, you know, whether that be joy and gratitude, sorrow, abandonment, things that like are universal themes. And the best thing that we can do is be able to relate to each other so that we can come together and be closer versus more separated. And so to be able to relate and identify with how people are experiencing the world is just a huge part of why I love to connect with people. And I wanted to make it fiction because, again, like I love diving into different worlds and creating characters. I also will say this is a little bit more of like a faction novel. It's like there's some fact in there about my life that I've drawn from my life, some of my siblings' lives, and poured it into the characters as well. So even though it is fiction, if you followed my career or my journey at all, you'll see little Easter eggs. oh yeah, that's that time in her life. So yeah.
So did you have an idea and you were like, can I write a book? And then how did you get connected with Ellen?
Yeah, so I was going through this very big transformational time of my life about 6 years ago, like 5, 6 years ago. And I was sharing this with actually a producer who produced the Twilight movies. And I was telling him and his company about my story of what I was going through and these supernatural experiences I was experiencing. And it was just this like wild time in my life, and I was like, I wonder if we could do a screenplay about this. And then as we were talking, I was like, actually, this is more than just like one film. Like this is a series of books. I think that like we can dive even deeper into the characters if you go into a novel. And so as we were kind of discussing what we should do, they suggested getting a ghostwriter, which a lot of celebrities do. And that was the initial plan, and that's how I came across Ellen's work, and not first as a ghostwriter. I read her books that she had. She had a debut novel a few years ago, and has 2 out now. But yeah, I read Rule and Rise, and that Ellen did. And then as we got into it, though, I was like, you know what? I think I want to put you on the cover as well, because we really collaborated in this effort. And yes, it was my concept as far as like my experiences, but we really created this together. So I'll let Ellen speak because I am a chatterbox. Yeah, like how it all kind of came together for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we met originally through my agent, but it was funny because I was in the process of moving from New York to Lisbon, so I had just packed up all of my stuff and driven home to my mom's place in Pittsburgh when my agent called, and she was like, Julianne wants to meet you in New York on Monday. So I just turned back around, got back in the car, and it was for the opening of the Kinergy dance studio. So it was a little bit nerve-wracking to be told that I had to dance in front of a professional dancer to write for her. I'm used to just being behind a keyboard. But it was a great experience. Luckily, you don't have to be good at dancing to do Kinergy. It's more about just like moving and connecting with your body, and that wound up being really important for the story that we were writing too. So I'm really glad I had that experience because it helped with a lot of the scenes that you guys will read in the book. So.
I always am fascinated by every artist's process, and I know a lot of artists have a different process for each project, but I read an article once where Quentin Tarantino says he'll write a little bit about a character, then jump in the pool and go swimming, then he comes back and writes a little bit more. So what was your process like when you were writing?
Well, I mean, I think for me, speaking of like the dance class or the Kinergy class that Ellen took, it was so important for me for her to experience that if we were going to be writing this together, because a lot of what Lexi goes through in her journey is a lot of what the modality is, which is movement, breath work, visualization of the elements earth, fire, water, and air. And so those were the things that helped me on my transformation and my creativity. So while we were writing, I was also doing the same thing. So like moving my body, whether it was dancing or singing, being creative, like I had to do something visceral while writing this. Otherwise you get kind of stagnant and then get up in your head and then you're like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing here. But it's all about connecting to the body, getting out of your head and connected to your body. So yeah.
Yeah. As a non-dancer, what was your process like,
I
Ellen?
think we've kind of talked about this before, but we have like 2 different styles of creativity, I'd say, and like your brainstorming is very more like ephemeral and like thematic and like these large ideas, and it's like more like if you're brainstorming, it's like a map rather, and I feel like mine is very linear, like structural, because I'm just used to like thinking in plot, thinking in a book story and a character's arc. So I feel like we worked really well together in that way because you were able to kind of like expand the direction we were heading, and I could kind of like give us the direction.
Yeah, it's actually, that's one of the things that I love so much about collaborating. It's like, I collaborated obviously with Ellen on this project, or I collaborate with my brother a lot on projects, and it's about finding the balance of what you're really great at and what somebody else is really great at. And so I am definitely a high concept person. I can zoom out and see the big picture, and like Ellen and like my brother, yeah, they get right into the details, and so we complement each other. And so that's kind of what this elemental idea is as well. Like when you actually can go to the back of the book right before the reader's guide, there's a QR code, and I actually created a quiz for you guys to take to figure out what your elemental constitution, like your makeup is, and see like, oh, I'm this much earth, I'm this much water, and then you can kind of see like where your balancing is. So for instance, like we balance each other out and we're able to do so much. Sometimes you don't have to do everything on your own, you know?
Two heads are better than one.
For sure.
Two heads are better than one.
Exactly.
So what's your element then, Julianne? If you took the quiz, what would yours be?
So my main element is water, but I have it where it's like water, air, fire, earth, and you get to see the percentage of each one. So I'm actually quite balanced in all three: water, fire, and air, and then my earth is like pretty non-existent. So I have to really work hard at bringing in structure, bringing in stability, and if I can do that on my own, I will, and then I'll also bring in people around me to help me with that too.
So I know you said it's a little faction, so there are things you pulled from your personal life. When people are creating characters, are you envisioning people you know? Are you envisioning someone you passed at the mall? And you're like, oh, that person is how I, can imagine this person would look and be. How do you put your people and characters together?
Well, let's be real. Anytime I watch a movie or whatever, I'm always looking at the main character being like, this is main character energy, I'm on this hero's journey. Like, I'm definitely relating to that. So Lexi, the main character, definitely is really my story and my hero's journey in my personal life. And then, you look at the different characters though that we wrote, like Holly, and she has her own hero's journey within this as well. And I love that every character somebody is going to relate to. But I also feel like, especially with Lexi, people that have read the book already, they've come to me and they're like, wait, did you write this for me? And I was like, yes, I did. Yeah. Because again, we all as humans experience universal themes, and we might have different circumstances of how we got there, but the emotions that we're experiencing are similar. And we're not alone in those things. And so that's why it was really important for me to, even though it was based on a lot of my personal experiences, I didn't want to tell my story. I wanted to tell a story so that others could see themselves in it.
Okay, what did you learn about yourself by making this? And you said it took 4 years, so maybe a double-up question. Why did it take 4 years, and what did you learn about yourself through the process?
Well, so we actually started this right before the pandemic, and so then we were like in lockdown, which I think initially kind of helped because we had something to focus on like during the initial year of the lockdown. But I think personally, I learned how much I struggle with both like emotions and repressing them and like dealing with past things.
And I'm like, let's get it out.
Yes, definitely. And it was interesting because the book is so much about community and about how you can't heal all by yourself. You need support systems in place. And so it was interesting to write it during a period where we were all kind of more isolated from our communities than we normally would be. And that made it more difficult in the beginning, but I think made the book ultimately stronger in the end because we were kind of working through that in real life as we were writing it. And then you had some very
I had some the reason why it was so challenging for me, and it took 4.5 years, so as I said before, this was very much inspired, this book was very much inspired by my own personal experience. So while we were writing this one, I had already had this amazing activation of like my life opening up from like just living in a box this big where everything was great, everything is perfect, everything's fine. And as I started expanding, we started writing this book, but when you expand all the good stuff, all the other stuff starts coming up too. And so I was actually in the era of, there are children in here, so I don't know if I should swear, but what I like to call the death hole pit of shit era, where once you activate and things are starting to become amazing, then you start getting aligned in your like true north of who you are and your soul, and the things that don't serve you or resonate anymore start falling apart. And my stuff was starting to fall apart while we were writing this book. So I felt very disjointed. I was like, wait, I'm writing about this unbelievable experience of opening up while I feel the opposite right now, where I'm feeling massive amounts of pain because a lot of my life is unraveling. And even though it was the right decision, any kind of change is loss. And so you're gonna feel some sort of loss. And so that was why it took so long, because I felt out of like alignment and integrity writing this at the same time while I was going through something challenging. So every time there was like a little bit of levity and I felt like, ooh, I can breathe again, we would start writing again, and then it would stop and then it would come back again. And eventually in November of 2022, I was out of the cave and I realized, I was like, I'm gonna read this whole book one more time, just like start to finish, instead of just in chunks like we did. And I was like, oh, this is really good. And I could see it from a different perspective now because I wasn't in it. And then I was like, oh, we should do this. Ellen was like, is this book ever gonna finish? And is this ever gonna see people? Are people ever gonna read this?
But I think it was good we had that delay, because it would have been a completely different book if we had just pushed through and tried to do it when you were in that headspace.
Well, and that's also what I learned too, which is a lot of my career, because I'm so action-based and like achievement-oriented, and that's how I was kind of built, I usually just finish projects even when I don't feel like they're 100% done or that I'm totally like happy with it, because it's like, well, I just got to keep going or there's a deadline. And that's a good thing for some things, but for this was such a personal, artistic expression that I really, we really wanted to do it justice and let it breathe, let it have its own life, and it really came together.
Is there something you did, I'm sure there was a collection of things, because if you aren't challenging yourself, you aren't growing, to get you out of the dark hole of whatever you said? Like, were there certain things you did that helped you? And you said, and what it sounds like is that was took 2 years almost to get there. And I know a lot of people, when they're going through heartbreak, when they're going through big life, they say, it's time, which is the last thing you want to deal with. So was there anything specifically that helped you through that time to get out?
Well, what's interesting is everything that Lexi goes through in this book is actually the antidote. It's the tools to actually connect more to yourself. But when you've spent your whole life building up layers of protection around you, to make you feel safe, and you've put people in your life and circumstances and environments, you get further and further away from yourself. So you have to de-layer and shed those things, and that takes time. And then you have to sit in it and be like, do I trust myself? And I always look at it as like a downward spiral of unraveling. Then you sit there, you let it integrate for a little bit, and then you have to come back out, right? So I knew all the tools to do, but I kind of needed to just sit there for a little bit and know that I felt happy and safe and loved without anything else. And that was hard, I'm not gonna lie, but it was so worth it. And now that I'm, I'm actually, that's book 2, by the way. The Death Whole Pit of Shit era, that's book 2.
Working title.
You guys all saw Twilight, New Moon, this is the second one,
All right.
right? So, so I'm currently living in like book 3 right now.
Awesome. So when you guys are reading leisurely, is there a certain genre that you are drawn to with your reading?
I mean, I love fantasy, so that's why like this was very much like the supernatural fantasy vibes and why we wanted to work together.
Yeah. I mean, I read a little bit of everything too, but mainly I write fantasy, sci-fi, but I love literary fiction too, historical, and everything.
I also love self-help books, like that's like my jam. And so that's why I was like, how do I put in what I get and the lessons that I learned through that and put it in something that can feel really adventurous, like, oh, this is more of an exciting world to jump into, and looking at it as more of like, instead of being fearful of change, which sometimes those books can be a little intimidating. It's like, oh no, this is the joy of transformation. We're about to go on this journey and like watch it happen in a way that feels inviting versus intimidating.
Okay, and I need you to settle this. Is listening to an audiobook, does that count as reading the book?
Yes,
Okay.
because neurologically they've done studies,
thing.
like they scan brains when you're listening to an audiobook versus reading, and it's the same area that lights up, so.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm an audiobook, and I get crap all the time when I say, oh, I just finished reading a book. They're like, no, you didn't. You listened to
Also,
it.
I mean, like, calling that not reading would be ignoring all of oral storytelling, which is like how we told stories before books existed, so.
I think also, I did the narration of the book as well,
perfect.
and so that was so fun and so challenging, because I obviously wasn't doing like different accents and like different like a man voice or anything like that, but I did change the tone of my voice every once in a while so you could kind of hear.
Wait, do the character. Sorry.
So like Lexi is just my voice, and then Shane is a little bit more pointed and a little bit more direct. That's Lexi's husband. Holly is like a little bit more breathy like this. She's a little bit more kind and soft-spoken. B, she's got like a little bit of a rasp that goes back here when she speaks. So there was like a really fun time like going back and forth with the different voices. So I hope that like when people read this, they feel like, oh, I was trying to embody each person, because sometimes it's hard to go back and forth when you're just listening. Sometimes I'll read the book while I'm listening just so I get a double intake.
Okay, so I have a couple more questions. What is something you're hoping people take away from this book?
I hope that people can just connect to Lexi's story and maybe, just first of all, enjoy reading it. That's always my goal as a writer, just have fun. But I hope that people will find something to relate to, either in her story or in the side character stories, because I feel like there are so many interesting life lessons almost in it that makes it sound prescriptive. It's not. It's just a fun story. But I feel like I get the most out of reading fun stories that have those kind of themes underlying them. So that's what I would hope that people take away.
Who likes Ryan Reynolds? Right? Okay. I'm just gonna make this correlation. Over the years, Ryan Reynolds has been making movies that are like action comedy, right? But what's underneath that? There's always some sort of message of connection or some like lesson, you know what I'm saying? And so it's like, that's what this is. It's a way for you to like jump into something that feels exciting, but also feel something at the end of the day. And whether that has you go inward and look inward, great. If it doesn't and it was just a fun, great experience for you, that's awesome too. And I think for me, obviously, like, you gave such a beautiful detail of what the book is about, but if I could just share, like, from my words too, it's like, because I don't know, do you guys know what this book is about? I mean, you guys came here, you're excited, we're gonna sign it and stuff, but like, if I were to do like a quick little pitch of what this book is about, it's like, a woman who seemingly has everything together, perfect life, perfect husband, perfect job, perfect everything, and then she starts having these supernatural experiences and are threatening the relationships around her, and so she's afraid to even talk about them. But she's so curious about it because how can you ignore what's happening? And so she, goes to explore these newfound gifts and powers, and as she's going through them, she has to harness these powers through the tools of using the elements, earth, fire, water, and air, to help her cultivate those powers. And all along the way, things are happening with her relationships and her husband and all these things, but it's about trusting her. She needs to trust herself and choose herself in the process, and even if that is scary, but by trusting that, she can actually do more for herself and for others, instead of leaving herself out of the picture. So that was very much my experience. If that resonates with you in any regard, like you will connect to this book in a way that feels, again, less intimidating. So my hope is just that, as Ellen said, you can connect to it. It might mean something. It might just be a fun journey. But yeah, it's exciting to feel like it's like entertainment and media and books and all that. It's so purposeful because you can bring entertainment and joy to people. But if you can also activate something inside of them that makes them feel alive or curious, like that's always been my goal.
So I think we're all very guilty of like looking at what's next, instead of focusing on the beautiful moments. Like, you should be so proud of this and really celebrate it. But of course, people love you so much and they just want to know what is next for you. Maybe you're gonna take a nap because you've been doing a lot of traveling. You know what I mean? Maybe you're gonna relax, and that's fair. But if there's anything else you would like to talk about, here we go.
Well, I'll add to this because at the beginning of the year, after this was all like done and we're like, oh, we're gonna publish this book, I actually realized I have some unfinished business with music, and I started writing just for fun. And I wrote the title track to the book, which we were listening to when we walked in. And then I wrote also a song for each one of the lessons that Lexi goes through. So the air song, when she learns to stand up for herself. And I don't want to give the book away too much, but there's a fire song about healthy expression and, anger even and rage, but also sensuality. And then there's also, the grieving song about loss that's within water. And then the earth song is all about your roots and where you come from and your family system. And so that felt like such a, I don't know, like that for me was one of the most exciting things too, is to have different mediums of how people can receive this, and to actually have a soundtrack to the book and experience it through music or through reading or audio, listening to the narration, and hopefully if it does really well, that can be adapted hopefully into a show or a movie or something. I feel like this story has a lot of legs and can go somewhere, and because it is so universal. So I'm hoping that's what's next.
Awesome. Well, please give a lovely round of applause for Julianne and for Ellen. Thank you so much for taking the time. Obviously, I know you guys want to meet them. You want to get your book signed, so we're going to begin that here in just a second.
Thank you so much,
Thanks so
Val.
much.
Thank you.
Woo.